to be very good. So we can proceed with our class. If you are having any challenges with the sound or the document that I'm sharing, please let me know so that we know also that our class will come out well, the recording. Let me just pick my pen here so that we can proceed. If you want to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and you ask. Okay, now we are proceeding. The first part of our module is the introduction. So we need to look at that first, the introduction part. And being said introduction, it doesn't mean it's something that will not be asked. You realize that question 1 will be asking basically these things that we're going to discuss. So we need to understand on this topic, we need to understand the relationship between risk and return. Remember last week we talked about risk and return, and we said if you want to acquire more return, you should assume or accept more risk. So there's a concept in risk management which just says the higher the risk, the higher the return. Remember, we talked about what we call treasury bills, which we are going to look at in this class and other classes to follow. Treasury bills are issued by the government. And when you buy government securities, the risk of the government to default is very low. And those instruments or those investments from the government, they've got lower risk and lower return. So if you need low risk, be prepared to assume, to accept lower return. We're going to dig deeper into instruments, financial instruments, securities or assets which offer higher returns. What are those instruments? What is the risk attached to those instruments? For example, a company just wake up today and it's producing, it's manufacturing rockets which are going to space. It might look as a good business and it's a risky business, but when it's successful, it might be a very profitable business. But there's a risk that maybe the first rocket will not even go 10 meters upwards. So you're investing money, yes, it's a lucrative business, but there's a probability, the probability of higher returns is there. But the risk attached to that business is also higher. So you have to be prepared to assume or accept higher risk when you want higher return. So you'll find that those who do investments and portfolio, they will now dig deeper. If a person comes and wants to his or her money to be invested, they will produce what we call an investment policy statement. So as to understand what are you looking for, are you going to accept this level of risk? So I think that we need to understand in this module, in this topic or in this introduction part of the module, the relationship between risk and return. Then calculate expected return, variance, standard deviation of the portfolio of risk assets. Expected return is just the same as mean. We're going to see that variance is the risk. Variance and standard deviation are measures of risk. Expected return is this part that is relating to return here. Variance and standard deviation is relating to risk. So you find that variance and standard deviation is one and the same thing. Variance, we're going to do all those calculations. They're simple. Variance and standard deviation, it's just one and the same thing. When you want to calculate standard deviation and we have variance, it's just the square root of variance. But standard deviation is a standardized measure. We usually use standard deviation because it is easier to interpret than variance, as we are going to see. Then the next item goes like, explain how covariance, correlation influence expected return and the volatility of the portfolio of risk assets. We're going to look at that, illustrate the relationship between expected return and the standard deviation. We'll look at that because you might have sets of investments. Another one might have higher return, lower standard deviation. Another one might have higher standard deviation, low expected return, or a mixture of sets of portfolios which we can choose to invest. So we're going to choose, we're going to have an understanding of if this investment has got this expected return and this risk, and this one has got this expected return and this risk, which one should I choose? It's not something that just pop up, or it's just something that we can just assess through the eyes. We need to do calculations which can help us to understand which portfolio to invest in based on expected return, and standard deviation. I know some of the concepts they are not now at the moment. You might not be very familiar with the concepts, but as we proceed, you understand that the concepts are not that difficult. Okay. I just want to make sure that our recording is coming out. Okay, let me just make sure that. Okay, I'm sure all is well on this end. So if I have any questions as well proceeding, or you are not able to hear me properly, kindly let me know. Okay, then we proceed. Define the efficient front end, explain the impact of assumption on short selling and borrowing. We want to explain that. Understand and explain the concept of capital asset pricing model. We have also a slide or some notes that are just on capital asset pricing model, because the topic is also asked on number 4, which is usually our last question in the question paper, which usually dwells on case studies. So we need to understand the capital asset pricing model in detail. We are going to describe the assumptions of the capital asset pricing model. We're going to use the capital asset pricing model to calculate expected return, which is the largest part of our assignment 1 and our question 1 in the examination. Calculate and explain alpha. We're going to explain what is alpha, the significance of alpha. What does a positive alpha mean? The meaning of a negative alpha. We're going to dig deeper and demystify all those concepts. We're going to define the arbitrage pricing theory and compare it with the capital asset pricing model, and we're going to define the assumptions underpinning the arbitrage pricing theory. Explain the relationship between risk and return for companies. We're going to look at that. Explain the risk management strategies used by financial institutions. Yes, we're going to look at that. There is a question paper which also asks about that. Explain the fundamentals of credit ratings. We're going to look at that also. Remember, 4804, there's also an assignment that is also talking about the significance of credit ratings. We're going to talk about the models, the features, the standard and poor. So stay tuned. We're going to do our best to make sure that we understand. I think there is someone who wants to join. So if you are in a position to admit others, you can just admit them. The free class, it's going to be our last free class. And some of the classes that will proceed will be paid. And yes, we wanted to invite people to know so that they know our service, but I'm sure we will not keep having free classes. Those who know what we do and what we produce, they will definitely join. Yeah, let me just check the messages that are posted in the group. Maybe someone might be failing to join, struggling to connect. There's someone who's struggling to connect. Okay. What we can do to make sure that those who are struggling to connect at the moment is difficult to respond, or make the recording available for them, and that's what we're going to do to make recordings available. And we will do our best that we pass the module, not just pass, but with good marks. I'm sure you have access to our Facebook page. You can also look at the feedback that has been given by others, the testimonial. Okay, so now, without wasting time, let's just define market risk. What is market risk management? That's our module, RSK 4805. We are talking of market risk management. Market risk management. We're saying this is a field of risk management which deals with managing the potential loss in investment as a result of changes in one or more of the macroeconomic factors. So we're talking of exchange rate risk, we're talking of interest rates, we're talking of commodity risk, we're talking of price equity risk. So we are saying that a company might have a portfolio. We're going to explain what is a portfolio as we proceed. A portfolio is a group of investments or a set of investments. Group of investments that are held together. Warren Buffett always say that you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. So when we're talking of a portfolio, we're saying that Derek might choose not to invest all his money in a particular investment. Derek might invest one third of his money in Pick and Pay stocks, and another one third in, let's say, in government securities like treasury bills. What he's doing, he wants to avoid the risk of losing all his money, provided that maybe Pick and Pay might have some problems and might not pay some dividends for a particular period. So when you invest your money in different assets, you are diversifying your risk. The failure or the poor performance in one company will not hit you hard because another company might perform good. So that's the good part of diversifying your investment. So I'm saying companies also do that, especially banks. When you think in terms of financial institutions, they receive deposits from customers, and those deposits they can turn them into loans, or they can invest in different areas so that they can reduce the risk, because those deposits need to be paid back. And also, generally, they're also in the business of looking money. So you find that they will diversify their investments. And also another thing, I can see that some other guys, they're having challenges with the platform joining, but I'm sure very soon we are going to use the groups that we have, who are going to do our classes on Telegram. It will be easier because it will be just like a call, then we proceed like that. So yeah, that's what we have been saying. So we're saying market risk is the risk that cannot be controlled by institution and it affects the economy as a whole. So we're saying that market risk is another type of risk that needs to be monitored very well, because a company cannot actually have full control over market risk. It's wider risky. Like we can think in terms of COVID-19. There's no company that can say we are safe over COVID-19. We can think the Russia-Ukrainian war, it has led to commodity risk. Some companies were dependent on gasoline, on gas, on fuel to run their operations. But due to the Russian-Ukrainian war, it have affected the prices of gasoline, price of diesel, price of petrol. So it's also a risk which a company cannot say, we are safe, we can control we can manage this risk. It's a risk that affects every company and it can affect the wider market or the wider economy. It's different from the risk which is say, okay, we are having system challenges, we can improve our system, we can buy powerful computers. It's different. It's a different situation. So I think that market risk needs to be managed. Okay, we're going to see as we proceed. Changes in macroeconomic and political factors have an influence on the operations and profitability of almost every firm in an economy. It is important to manage this form of risk as it can lead to substantial losses. According to us, risk management is concerned with understanding and managing risk that an organization faces in an attempt to achieve these objectives. Today we are working on a Word document, but other classes will be presenting on a slide. So I'm saying this risk can have the effect of the loss on the firm. Let's just look at its firm-specific risk, and we also look at market risk that affect the wider economy. We're having this issue. Sorry, the document was used for quite a long, I don't know how many classes. So some of these things are still there. I should have deleted everything, but I remember I deleted quite a lot. But just the fact that the document has been used, and then some of the things they are now becoming a challenge to delete. But what we're saying is, you see this diagram, we're thinking in terms of ABC Bank. We want to look at risks which are affecting ABC Bank. ABC Bank is affected by the factors which are within its control, within the boundaries of the company, which management have control. Those risks, the firm might not be much worried because they can control. Like that's the micro environment, the deposits. Okay, maybe ABC Bank is giving 8% on deposits to its customers. They may say, our deposits are very low. They can increase to 9.5. They are managing. But it's not always possible to manage things like inflation or the war that is happening between Ukraine and Russia. But this you can manage. Capital you can manage. Strikes you can manage. Maybe you can increase the salaries of your employees. Systems stability. You can look for powerful computers, best developers. It's within your control. So this is a risk that can be managed within the company. Staff motivation. You can go for change management teams, you can go for training development, or you can find ways to motivate your employees. But now there's a risk that we are concerned with. The risk that the company does not have control. That's the risk that we are motivated in. Okay, so we're saying that macro environment. We have got inflation, we've got exchange rate, we've got unemployment rate, economic activity, natural disaster, like a war, like floods are happening, like what happened in KZN. You cannot have a control as a business. Sometimes you never projected that. Pandemics, COVID-19, war, Russia and Ukraine, you cannot have control as a business over those things. So we are saying that when you think in terms of market risk, yes, we are going to dwell much on the financial aspect, but do not forget that even things like pandemics, things like wars, natural disasters, they also fall under market risk because they do affect the wider economy. It's not something that is within your company only. So I think you can see what is market risk. So you realize that we will later on talk about what we call systematic risk and unsystematic risk. Those are the points that will be noting as we proceed, because those are typical exam questions. As you view past exam papers, you realize that those are key areas. Let's talk about sources of risk. If you have questions, you may ask. The above diagram illustrates the micro and macro sources of risk available to ABC Bank. The micro affects only ABC Bank, whereas the macro affects the whole economy, and the bank cannot control it. So, as a bank or as an investor, you are more worried about the risk that you cannot control. And as we are going to dig deeper, when we move to the capital asset pricing model, which we are not going to define now, you will realize that an equity investor is worried about the risk they cannot control. And we have a factor, or we have a constant that we use to define that risk, which is called beta. We're going to look at that later. So we're saying an equity investor, an investor who invests in stocks is also much interested about this kind of risk, which we call systematic risk. Okay, categories of risk. This thing, what I'm saying, that I've been using this document for long, so these things have not been deleted. Let me just delete them quickly so that as we explain it will be clearer. So what I always say is that the first class is, definitely we need to cover a lot, but I do believe that the first classes we might need to do justice. I know some of us know these things already, but I know that some are coming from the backgrounds which does not have deeper finance. So we can just be patient with those who are not in the financial field, because someone might not even know what is financial risk. Someone might not even know what is systematic risk. So if we just go and start talking about derivatives or swaps, it becomes something else. But if we start defining exchange rates in general terms, it becomes easier for someone who does not have a background in finance. I still remember, if you check our Facebook page, someone was even saying that, thank you so much, I have a background in law, and I was not good with mathematics, but we managed to push and pass together. So the reason why we can do that, the reason we are going through all these concepts, is for someone who does not have a background in risk management or finance to understand. We're going to also do the same with 04. We're going to, I'm not the one who is doing 01, 02, 03, but those who attended, they understand that the tutor is so good. He was explaining in detail. So we're going to work together so that we pass, not also just passing, but to know. So these are the categories of risk that we have. Let's look at these categories. So we're saying this is risk in general, and we have what we call financial risk and non-financial risk. We're going to explore more into what is financial risk and non-financial risk. Financial risk is risk that is going to have a direct impact on the financial position of the company. And our market risk fall under that. But remember, I've also said that we can also think of natural disasters as market risk, but let's not move much to that for a moment. For now, let's take interest rate risk, foreign exchange rate risk, purchasing power risk, commodity risk, equity risk as market risk. Yes, we think that market risk can also be something like a pandemic, a disaster, a natural disaster, an earthquake, a typhoon, a tsunami, or what. But let's just look in terms of the financial aspect, right? So we come to a position that we say market risk is financial risk, but not all risks which fall under market risk are financial. Some are not actually financial. Yes, they will have impact on financial side, but they're not actually coming from a financial perspective, like the natural disaster that we've just talked about. So I think there is someone who is having a network challenge. Because I'm seeing I'm trying to admit them several times. So if you might have a provision to accept others, you can accept them. Since we're saying this class is just an open class for everyone, you can accept them. Okay, so we are saying that under financial risk, we can actually talk of credit risk and market risk. Operational risk, sometimes it's not regarded as financial risk, but to some extent it can be also categorized under financial risk. So we are going to see that there might be differences with the different authors. There are differences. Some they put it under non-financial risk, some under financial risk. Okay, but in general, we're much interested in market risk, which is our module. That's our focus. But those who do for 804, you also need to understand about credit risk, portfolio risk, and also we're going to also work on aspects of credit risk and also operational risk. We are going to have questions on operational risk. So we are not going to disregard them. We are going to have also an understanding of what is operational risk. That's the reason why you see we've mentioned it. It includes theft, system failure, system incompetence. Like for example, we're thinking in terms of F&B. What happens if any F&B system goes down for 1 hour on a Christmas day or on a holiday, a major holiday? They can lose a lot of money and they can disappoint a lot of customers. That's the risk that we're talking about. System failure. For 1 hour, people cannot make transactions, cannot do online banking. So that's what we're talking about. Then non-financial risk, we can talk of reputational risk, governance risk, brand or image risk. So we're saying that a company also has got a brand. The brand has to be managed. If, for example, a company that is producing cars and it produces cars that have got some defectives and it start to recall those cars because they are leading to accidents, actually, you're also leading to a reputational risk. Your name is going to be online, your name is going to be affected, and your reputation will be affected. Okay, the above diagram explains risk in broad category. It is vital to note that this list is not exhaustive. It might be presented differently depending on the direction in which the presenter is looking. The operational risk we have presented it under financial risk, but it can also be viewed as non-financial risk. Operational risk may encompass theft, system failure, incompetent staff. This has effects of cascading into the financial position of the company, affecting the financial position of the company. Consider an accident at work. It will eventually lead to the company paying out money as the third parties might be injured. Okay, I'm talking of of an accident. Yes, exactly. Uh, I'm just checking. Since someone wants to join here. Okay, so okay, so that's what we're saying. So let's proceed with what is financial risk. Financial risk pointed by what is pointed out that
Mr. Iman.
Yes. Hello.
Mr. Iman, I just wanted to ask on the system risk.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm available. I can hear you.
On the system, perfect. So on the system risk, you said it's part of the micro or macro.
Okay, system risk is micro. System risk is micro. Why are we saying it's micro?
Okay.
We are saying, yeah. So let me just explain a bit so that maybe someone also might need also the same, might have the same question. You see, we have a system here, system stability. It's micro because it's within the company. Because we are saying if ABSA have a system failure, a system failure at ABSA does not mean FNB has got a system failure. It's only affecting ABSA. So it's micro, it's within the company, and it is within the company's capacity or control to manage that or to control that. So it becomes micro. So you're saying you realize that most of the operational risk is within the control of the company. Most of the operational risk is micro. But most of the market risk or market risk is macro. It's broad in nature. It cannot be controlled by the company. Macro risk, macro aspect of risk are market risk and cannot be controlled by the company and is what we call systematic risk, and that's the interest of the module. Okay. I did not check actually who asked the question, but I'm sure you answered. If you have more questions, you may ask as we proceed. Okay. So we've been talking of the diagram above, the diagram that is above. So let's move to financial risk. So we're saying that Hodge 2005 pointed that financial risk arises from numerous transactions, which include sales, purchases, investments, and loans. Financial risk is therefore a broad category that includes market risk, credit risk, and liquidity risk. So we find liquidity risk, we can talk about it, but liquidity risk does not always mean it's market risk, because liquidity risk may just affect one company. The fact that one company is failing to pay its employees because of working capital challenge does not mean that the next company is also having challenges. Yes, liquidity risk might be motivated or exaggerated or edified by the fact that the economy is performing bad, but the presence of liquidity risk does not mean it's market risk. It might be just a company that is having challenges. Okay, so we will actually understand a lot. Yes, liquidity risk, we can talk about it, but not much in this module. So I'm sure we can proceed. But I just wanted to mention something. We're saying that financial risk arises from numerous transactions. I'm going to explain this when we're talking about exchange rate risk. But I'm sure, guys, you know that last year in 2021, those who do some online transactions, $1 was equal to something like 14 Rand. But do you check last week or this week or even today, if you can check on your computer, just say USD or on your phone, USD you realize that $1 is equal to almost 19 Rand. What does this mean? It means the Rand is losing value. In 2021, you only need 14 Rand to buy $1. But today you need 19 Rand to buy $1. It means now you need more rands to buy 1 unit of $1. Just think in terms of a company that wants to pay 10 million US dollars. It's going to be affected heavily because in 2021 it just multiplied by this, but now it's multiplying by 19. And you see that the amount of loss that is there is so big. You can talk of 3 million. And 3 million is a lot of money. Someone can go and buy a Land Rover, a Defender. So That's risky. That's the challenges of transaction. So you realize that companies need to think in that way. Should we pay now when the exchange rate is like this? If we delay payment, since the payment of a particular product or commodity that you've bought is not required today, we can pay in 3 months' time. Is it a right decision to pay now? Or is it good maybe to invest the money and pay in 3 months? But when we are going to pay in 3 months, would the exchange rate be good for us? So that's what we'll be thinking. We'll be thinking a little more so that we understand. So that's the reason of going through a class like this, because it will help us to have the understanding of the basics. So we're saying that the following are the main sources of risks: exposure to market fluctuations, market or systematic risk. We explained that. Remember, we talked about commodity risk. The changes in the price of fuel is affecting companies. No, companies are now using, some companies are using diesel to power their generators. Due to load shedding, companies are being affected heavily. Because if this was happening in 2010, diesel was very cheap. But due to commodity risk, due to the increase in the price of petroleum related products, it means companies are affected heavily because of fluctuations in the commodities market. So what I've done on this document, even if when you get it, I'm gonna give you, you'll be exposed to those different types. There are tables which can show you what are we saying when we're saying commodity risk, how these prices change. Okay. So let's proceed. We are also saying that financial risk resulting from the trading partners and counterpart risk. What we're saying is that you have a counterpart, or you've got someone that you are in a transaction with. Let's just give a general example. You borrow 50,000 rand from your brother, and you know your brother is a millionaire. Do you know you can choose not to pay back the money willingly or because of some challenges? You know what, I know if I'm going to return the 50,000 to him, he is going to accept it. But even if I do not return, it will not affect him. So people are different. They can do that willingly, or because they might have some challenges. So we're saying that there might be counterpart risk. I'm just giving a general example, but in reality, we're saying that we have got a transaction or a deal with someone, then they fail to pay back, sometimes because of challenges that they've just faced. But some people, they can just delay payment unnecessarily, or it's a company which is just using your money to invest somewhere before they pay you back. That's why we have got the different departments which can follow up on outsending money from our clients, because some people, they just be moved to pay big. So it might be also a real counterpart risk, like you are trading derivatives, like what happened between, I'm sure it was long-term capital and Russia. Russia defaulted on 4 billion derivatives on a deal that it had with the long-term capital. If my memory serves me well, we're going to look at that later. We're going to explain all these things related to counterpart risk. Financial risk arising from internal processes. That's where we talk about system failures and organizational structure. Like a system failure for apps, like for FNB that we once mentioned. Just think of an hour and it's a holiday. They can lose 1 million by that. And the reputation is also going to be affected. So they have to manage all those. System failures are very okay, maybe, yeah, I'm seeing someone is having challenges with joining the class. Yeah, I'll try to solve that next time. But next time, guys, we're gonna use Telegram, so we're gonna use the paid app group next time. I can see that people are having challenges with the Teams. With Telegram, it will be easier because it will be just like a normal call. We can do everything, sharing the screen, recording the meetings and the like. So we're gonna migrate to Telegram. Yeah, we're gonna migrate to Telegram. I'm sorry for the guys who are not able to attend. So I saying credit risking. Let's talk about credit risk. Credit risk, according to Rose and Eugene, credit risk is the probability that some of a financial institution's assets, especially its loans, will decline in value and perhaps become worthless. Banks are more susceptible to credit risk due to their product portfolio. When borrowers fail to honor up their dues, the bank will assume the risk associated with non-performing loans. We talk about default a lot, probability to default. We're going to talk about that when we are doing credit risk management. But that's the aspect that we're talking about here. When we're talking of non-performing loans, we're saying when borrowers fail to honor up their dues, the bank will assume the risk associated with the non-performing loans. Non-performing loans involve loans which the customer defaulted and the bank has lost part or both the principal and the interest. The borrower may pay part of the money, and over time they may fail to pay the remaining part, or may fail to pay completely, and it's a risk of today the company. So you're going to see in 03, in 04, you talk about moral hazard and adverse selection. Those are the concepts also that relates to reasons for credit risk. We want to talk about moral hazard later and adverse selection. Okay, so this is a diagram that is showing non-performing loans, the percentage of non-performing loans in South Africa from 2010 to 2019. You see that that was 2010, and maybe the changes in the economy was also maybe make things better. In 2010, maybe the banks were giving many loans because things were good, World Cup and the like, but issuing laws not becoming very stringent or strict on who they give loans. And it was changing, declining. In 2018, started to rise. Okay, let's move to the next part. So I'm saying it is important for banking institutions to improve their credit or lending policies to reduce the risk of attracting bad debts. You can also look at this on the internet. SAA are reporting a bad debt bloodbath, but it may look worse than it really is. But this was back then, I'm sure in the 2017, something like that. But it's also good just to look at those articles you just read. Can give you also good understanding. Let's talk about reputational risk. Reputational risk is defined as risky. The reputational risk is negative publicity, whether true or not, that can affect a financial institution's financial firm's income by discouraging customers from using the service of the institution. Just as positive publicity may serve to promote the financial firm's service products. So when you're talking of reputational risk, it's negative publicity about the firm, which can be true or false. So a firm should also need to have brand management, need to have how to manage their name so that it safeguards against the false messages about the brand. Remember, if you check on internet, there's a company which also published an article relating to Capitec Bank, and they were saying Capitec Bank is not performing well, it's just giving loans without proper assessment of the customers. It is likely that Capitec is gonna fail. I think it's a company that is based in UK. It's Veso. I actually forgot the name, but you can check for the article. And the South African Reserve Bank step into the issue, and I'm sure they find that company a lot of money, 50 million something like that. Why? Because what the company was causing, it was affecting the reputation of Capitec. And once the reputation of Capitec has been affected in the public, the depositors, in the customers, the trading partners know that Capitec was in a grip of failure or might fail, customers would withdraw. You find customers and clients going to withdraw their deposits, and definitely the bank was going to shake. So that's negative publicity is bad, positive to affect. And the reason why the South African Reserve Bank had to step in was because that the failure of Capitec is a likelihood of affecting other banks, because in 04 and 05 there's what we call systemic risk. Systemic risk is the risk that the failure of bank A will lead to the failure of bank B, And the failure of bank B and A will lead to the failure of bank C. That failure of these three banks may lead to a failure of bank D. And the failure of bank D might lead to the failure of company AB. And also it might lead to the failure of company BC. Why is it that? Is that because company bank A has transactions with bank B, right? We're saying it's because bank A has got transactions with bank B. So the failure of bank A will lead to the failure of bank B because bank B will not receive maybe its remaining obligations with bank A. Bank A, because it has failed, it will fail to pay bank B. And the failure of bank B has got some transactions with bank C, which they should pay some money to bank C. So the failure of bank B will also lead to failure of bank C. Okay. Also, bank C had transactions with bank D. The failure of bank C will lead to the failure of bank D. Also, bank D had transactions with AB or some project with the company AB and company BC. The failure of bank D will lead to the failure of these companies. For example, you can look also for a company called Evergrande. So for now, assignment 1 is not out. We are trying to make sure that as we proceed, it's not just a rush hour. We also need to make it clear so that we understand the background of the module, because it's important on the first classes to understand, because I once said that we don't pass in the examination. We pass the first weeks of maybe 4 classes and the like. What you carry in your mind, if you conceive or you understand that this is possible, and you nurture your mind that this is possible. Some say optimism is the mother of success. So when we go through this module like this and trying to make things clear, I do believe that it's important that maybe just go and do the calculations and the like. I know the calculations, they are nice, but we also need to have the theory part. So what are we doing when we're doing the calculations? What is the significance? What's the essence? What's the reason? Okay. So if you look for this company called Evergrande, it's in China. And it's interesting, if you look at the big banks now, you find the big banks now in the world, they are in China. So you find this company called Evergrande. Last year, it was struggling with its debt, which was over $300 billion US. And this company was shaking. It was investing in different areas, football. It was also in the car, in the electric cars, but it has not sold even one, I'm sure. And it had built houses over a short period, which are more than the houses that were built in America as a whole, as a continent, and in Asia, if not mistaken. You check that. It was growing very rapidly, building those tall buildings for residential purposes. But the residential buildings, they are empty and is struggling to pay its debts. So this company, the failure of this company, I'm not sure if it was actually raised out by the Chinese government, or maybe it managed to find ways to resustain or to be resuscitated. But the failure of this company was going to affect Japanese companies. The failure of this company, it was going to affect Chinese banks. It was going to affect even South Africa, because South Africa supply a lot of steel to China. There is a lot of scrap metal recycling in South Africa. And if you have the statistics of scrap metal recycling, you'll find that a lot is going to China. So these companies that are doing scrap metal, they might have supplied scrap metal to China, and some of it was going to Evergrande on credit. So the failure of Evergrande, definitely it was going to affect South African companies. So that is how it works, because companies are now connected. We are living in a globalized economy. Financially, companies are connected, banks are connected. So the failure of one bank will definitely lead to the failure of another bank. That's what we call systemic risk. We're gonna have to understand the difference between systemic risk and systematic risk. Now let's talk about systematic risk and unsystematic risk. Remember, when I was talking about the failure of one bank and the like, we've been talking of what we call systemic risk. Systemic risk is not systematic risk. Systematic risk is market risk. Systematic risk is undiversifiable risk. Systemic risk is the risk that we call the ripple effect that is caused by failure of one bank leading to the failure of another bank, as what happened during the 2008 global financial crisis. It started in the US due to the housing market. Houses were just built rapidly. Like what happened in China recently. The housing market, people just giving loans, even the people who do not afford the loans, and also the unregulated um, over-the-counter derivatives market. We're going to explain about that later. So it's just a few banks which failed first, and it led to the failure of other banks because these banks had huge transactions in between. So the failure of one bank, automatically it will lead to the failure of another bank because they are standing on one foundation. So the foundation of the other, if it falls, it drips, it means the other one is also going to fall. So that's what happens with the banks. When we are talking about banks, and especially in this module, we need to understand the reason why banks should manage. Banks are fragile. They are delicate institutions. They should be well managed. Those are companies or institutions or the sector that should be managed properly. Why? Also, it is a repository of the public's funds. So the failure of a bank, it will affect the economy, it will affect even the poor. The poor, the low to medium income earners, they will deposit their money. And it is usually the less privileged who are going to suffer more when banks fail. So banks should be well managed. One, because they are fragile, and also they are a repository of the public's funds. Okay. According to this guy, 2012, systematic risk is undiversifiable risk or uncontrollable risk. Remember, we've been talking about system employees strikes that can be managed. But systematic risk is undiversifiable. You cannot beat systematic risk by saying, okay, there's load shedding, and we know that we will need diesel to power our industry. So now, okay, we've been dealing with the FMCG industry, which is fast moving goods. Okay, now let's diversify to mining. But still, load shedding is there. You definitely need the same diesel. And the diesel price is just the same. The price of diesel does not change because you are buying it as a company that is in the mining sector or as a company in the fast moving goods. So you cannot diversify this risk. You cannot control it. Okay, so let's proceed. It is macro, and as it influences the whole economy. It is macro as it influences the whole economy. A firm or industry has no control over systematic risk. In this paper, we are concerned with market risk, which is systematic risk, because we cannot diversify it. Spreading our investment across the different sectors will not curb market risk. In this discussion, we shall assume that all market risk is financial risk. All market risk is financial risk, but not all financial risk is market risk. I'm sure when you read the statement again, you understand it. But no worries if you do not understand it now. This is because credit risk is financial risk, but not market risk. Credit risk, yes, is financial risk. Credit risk is financial risk, but credit risk is not market risk. No worries if you do not understand this. It might just be something that can be a bit confusing, but do not worry about that. Let's talk about market risk. We talked about market risk even above. Mofo, want to say something? Yes, you can talk. I saw you have raised your hand.
Sure. Because now the issue is systematic and differentiated to system risk.
Okay.
Because they are still too confusing too.
Okay. Let me just admit others and come back on the question. So the classes, yeah, you can ask questions, guys, during these first classes. It's important so that when we, as we proceed, you understand some of the things. Okay, to come back to your question, you asking about systematic risk, right? And
Sure.
systematic, the difference between systematic risk and
System risk
okay.
and system. Because with systems, we were clear that is micro. Now you are saying systematic is macro risk. And between the two,
Okay. I'm getting
yeah,
you.
it's getting confusing now.
Okay. I'm getting you. I want you to understand something, right? When we talk of system risk, let me just say system risk. Do not think of it as system risk, right? Thing is just check, just do think in terms of system failure. That's what I was mentioning from the first on the first point. And system failure is relating to operational risk. I'm going to explain it. It relates to operational risk, right? What are we saying about that? We are saying that operational risk, these are the risks that affect the company or maybe on daily activities. Like we can talk of strike, it can affect the company. System failure, we're saying that a bank like FNB might have a system failure. When you're talking of a system failure, we can think in terms of the computers. Maybe the system for online banking is not operating. It affects the payments. That's a system failure. And the system failure is affecting the operational activity of the company. It's affecting the daily operations of the business. It's affecting the daily operation of the bank. So when we think in terms of system failure, which we wanna say system risk, yes, it can be termed system risk, but when you say system risk, I think you might have some challenges. Why? Because we have also systematic risk. So the system, it will be many systematic risk, right? And please, you can ignore this one for now. That has been explained. It's called systemic risk. And this systemic risk, you will not use it much in 05. You use it more in RSK for 04. That's the one that was saying a bank fails A, may leads to bank B fail, bank B also, and it leads to bank C. So systems failure falls under operational risk. And it is when the system of the company, like the management information system, the IT system, fails to operate and customers want to use the system. We want to buy in checkers, but the bank system is not working. I'm going to be frustrated and go back home without purchasing. It's losses to the company, it's affecting the reputation of the company. So systems failure or risk, if you want to say risky, is operational risk. It's affecting the daily operation of the bank. So it falls under operational risk. Then we go to what we call, and also this systems risk is part of micro risks. It falls under micro because it is within the company's control. The company can control system failure. Maybe the cause of the system failure is outdated systems or computers, but the company has increased the clientele base, but it's still using outdated computers. So the company can control this by buying powerful computers, so that that set of computers, integration between the hardware and the software that has been upgraded by the company, can support the current and future clientele. So we can control that as a company. But now let's move to systematic risk. Systematic risk is uncontrollable risk. You cannot control it easily. Why? Because we're thinking in terms of commodity risk. This is market risk that we're talking about. You cannot control like exchange rate risk. You know, the rand is now $19. 19 rand is equal to $1. What can you do? You can't do anything. You just have to go and do what's supposed to be. You just go and buy this because you want to buy easy. Maybe you're working for Mount Choice. Mount Choice wants to buy 1,500 laptops. right? And one laptop is worth $1,000. Okay? And it wants to buy them today. So what is going to happen is that MultChoice might not have an option because it does not control the exchange rate risk. And the exchange rate risk is not within their control. So they just have to face the risk. They want to buy 1,500 computers. Okay, each computer is worth $1,000. So how much is one computer? It means one computer is 19,000 rand. Because $1 is equal to 19 rand. $1 is equal to 19 rand. $1 is equal to 19 rand. So how $1,000 is equal to 19,000 rand. So it means MultChoice will need 19,000 rand to buy one laptop. Okay, then multiplied by 1,500. My calculator is a bit far away from me, but let me just run around and just pick it so that we see what we're saying. So I'm saying 19,000 multiplied by 1,500. It means it will need a total of 28,500,000 rands. This is today, guys. Okay, so let's just think, what about if MultChoice have realized that they will need the best computers, maybe the Ryzen 7, or the Core i9 for all their guys in 2021, and in 2021 $1 was equal to 14 rand. $1 was equal to 14 rand in 2021. So it means one computer that is worth $1,000, MultChoice needed only 14,000 rand. Okay, only 14,000 rand. So you see that from 2021 to 2023 now, there's a difference already bit of 19,000 minus 14, which means 5,000 rands. You see the challenges with exchange rate movements. It's something that we might not look at, but it's affecting companies. So let's look at how much MultChoice needed in 2021. It needed 14,000 multiplied by 1,500 computers, which is 21 million. 21 million. So let's calculate the loss that can be made by delaying the transaction. If they knew that they needed computers, it would be 28,500,000 minus 21 million. So we are having 75, if I calculated correctly, it's just a 28, 5 minus 2. It's 75 million, right? Yeah, I'm sure. So you find that this loss will be very huge for the company. 75,000. It will be very huge for the company, because the company just failed to do the transaction at the right time. If they knew that they needed the computers, and they have the exchange rate guys who know how the exchange rates move, they should have managed to understand that we have to buy now. They should have understood that they should buy the computers now than making a huge loss like that. Because if we subtract, we see that if we change this 7.5, I'm sure it's 7.5 million. I'm calculating it's 7.5, should be 7.5 million. Let's take that 7.5 million, guys. The difference, let's say 7.5 million. We want to see how many computers they could buy with that 7.5 million. Let's just divide by the amount by the cost of the computer in 2021, which is 14,000. It means they can buy more than 500 computers. So we are saying that companies should manage exchange rate risk. But the way they can manage is like knowing when to buy, knowing when to purchase, when to pay the debts, when to pay for the product that have been bought on credit. Why? Because you can, at this point, there's nothing that they can actually do if they need the computers today. Because you cannot do anything if you want to buy the computers today. Because the exchange rate is 19. And that's what is in the market. Unless you can have deals with a bank and agree with a bank, something like that. So we're saying that systems failure or systems risk, we defined it. Now we're defining systematic risk, which we're saying this risk is undiversifiable, uncontrollable, and it affects the wider economy. So I think in terms of exchange rate risk, interest rate risk, the interest rates, I'm sure interest rates have been recently increased in South Africa. It's affecting all the companies, because if interest rate is increased to be 8%, from 8% to maybe, let's say 10%, everyone wants to borrow is going to borrow that rate. Every company that wants to borrow, it can borrow that rate unless they have specialized deals. But we're saying that the increase in interest rate is affecting everyone. Okay, we're going to explain interest rate risk. It's not about borrowing only. There are a lot of other things that we think companies can invest their money. They will receive interest on investments. It will also be affected. But now we just explain these things in general. So we're saying under market risk, we have interest rate risk, commodity risk. We're going to see it later. Things like major commodities, like petroleum. That's what we think. How does they affect the company? And companies do not have control over this, over commodity risk. Okay. I think there was I still remember I was explaining this based on the question that was asked. Maybe I can ask again. Did you manage to understand the difference between systems failure or systems risk and systematic risk? Also, let me say systematic risk is risk that affects the wider economy. Systems failure, which falls under operational risk, is risk that is within the control of the company. But systematic risk is not within the control of the company. It includes things like equity risk, exchange rate risk, interest rate risk, commodity risk, and purchasing power risk, which are things the company does not have direct control over. Okay, as we are proceeding, you kindly let us know if you manage to understand the concept of systematic risk and also systems failure or systems risk.
No, I do get it. I do get it now.
Okay, thank you so much. If anyone have questions, kindly ask you guys as we're proceeding. We're gonna also talk something like firm
Yes, Amen. I have a question.
Yes.
Yes. It's not a question per se, but I just want to confirm whether system risk is part of. I know you haven't started to explain the unsystematic risk. So, but system risk, isn't it an example of an unsystematic risk, a risk that can be diversified or controlled?
Oh, okay, that's good.
So basically, what I'm trying to ask is that operational risk is an example of an unsystematic risk, isn't it?
Exactly, you're correct. Exactly. Thank you so much for the question. If you check the next topic, it's talking now about unsystematic risk. So we in the next 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to answer that question. That's when we are now talking about unsystematic risk, because the question will come and say, explain the difference between systematic risk and unsystematic risk. So you find that the systems risk that we've been talking about is unsystematic risk. It's firm-specific risk. So we're going to explain that in the short time. Okay, so let's talk about the systematic risk that we've been talking about. Systematic risk is market risk. That's the module. That's the core aspect of the module. Yes, we will go to the right We are not going to do what he said. Do not go to the right or to the left. Keep on the same thing. But as we are studying market risk, we're going to also look at other aspects that affect the company. But systematic risk is the same as market risk. So saying, as explained above, that we shall consider all market risk to be financial. The above diagram illustrates market risk. It is essential to understand that market risk may involve some non-financial risk, which include but not limited to natural disasters, famine, war, political instability. So if you check systematic risk or market risk, it's talking about big risks that do not affect only your company, that does not only affect my company, but they affect the whole South African economy. The increase in fuel is affecting every company. It's affecting even individuals. Inflation in South Africa is not affecting certain companies. It's affecting every company. The global supply chain challenge did not affect certain countries. It affected most countries. You know, China is mentioned as to be the world factory. When there was supply chain constraints, it affected many companies. It affected many countries. So it's market risk. It's wider economic risk. It's wider risk. Let's now come into unsystematic risk. So what I can say is that what you need to take into mind as we're proceeding for the examination, why even start answering the examination, is to understand the difference between systematic risk and unsystematic risk. This is the question that comes in the examination. What is the difference? Distinguish between systematic risk and unsystematic risk and give 2 examples. 5 marks, 4 marks. Then you already know. So let's talk about unsystematic risk. Unsystematic risk is unique to a specific asset or investment. Unsystematic risk is the risk that is associated with a particular firm or industry. So it's associated with a particular firm. For example, that aspect of operational risk that we've been saying, system failure, is specific to a particular firm. Hence, it is called firm-specific risk. So unsystematic risk is firm-specific risk. It's a risk that is affecting a particular firm. All right, risk that is affecting a particular firm. That's the difference now with systematic risk. Systematic risk is affecting all firms in South Africa. No firm can run away from commodity risk. Fuel, there is no certain place that you can buy your own fuel, especially with a company that needs to be compliant. RSK 402. You've got your governance. You are not going to buy your fuel using those black markets. You want to comply, you are going to buy fuel at the same price, and you are being affected by commodity risk. Commodity risk is systematic risk. So we're saying that it is called firm-specific risk. Firm-specific risk affects a particular firm, like the system failure that we've talked about. If employees of a particular firm choose to go on strike, that is firm-specific risk. That is unsystematic risk. It's idiosyncratic risk. When we talk of idiosyncrasy, we are talking of personality. That's personal. Understand your idiosyncrasies. Understand your personality. Understand yourself. It's within. So, unsystematic risk is idiosyncratic risk. It's firm-specific risk. It's a risk that is affecting a particular firm. So, I'm saying this form of risk can be diversified and controlled. Since unsystematic risk affects a particular industry, it therefore means we can invest funds in different industries. It means that if we can invest funds in different industries, we can do away with the impact of unsystematic risk. Because it's affecting a particular industry, or it's affecting the health industry. Also, let's also invest in the fast-moving goods industry, which is like ShopRite and the like. So, because it's affecting its particular firm, a company can control it by investing in other areas. Okay, let's just go through this example. If the South African Reserve Bank introduced a new law through its regulatory agents, which we shall cover later, maybe restricting banks to take deposits of more than 20,000 from individual customers. You cannot make a deposit of 20,000 rand as an individual customers, maybe the corporate clients. This will specifically affect the financial sector, primarily banks, because banks and some other few financial institutions, those are deposit-taking institutions. We're going to look at that later when we're talking about financial institutions. You realize that for those who are not in the banking sector, you understand that not every financial institution operates as banks. And that's the reason why banks should be heavily regulated. They are different from insurance companies. Banks are deposit-taking institutions, and the deposit-taking institutions should be well managed because they are repository of public funds. And their failure will lead to more risk. It will perpetuate affecting a lot of other things in the economy. So we are saying that there is a restriction in terms of the deposit that we can make. Therefore, we can conclude that I've skipped somewhere. We're saying that this will specifically affect the financial sector, primarily banks. The health sector, the agricultural sector, the mining sector, and other sectors may not be affected, are not affected. Therefore, we can conclude that unsystematic risk is security, firm, or industry-specific risk. So these terms, I'm sure those who attended our first class understand when you're saying it's security. Because I know to say security, we say what is security? Security is the same as asset. It can be used as an asset, as investment. So when you see security, we're just talking about an asset, a financial security, a financial asset, a financial investment. So unsystematic risk is security, firm, or industry-specific risk, which can be managed by spreading our investment across different sectors of the economy. Unsystematic risk includes liquidity risk. Why are we saying liquidity risk? The fact that JJ is failing to pay its transport workers. Sorry, I once worked in the transport industry. I didn't want to mention that the transport industry, but it's flooding in my head. So we're saying that it's failing to pay its workers. It doesn't mean that cross country is also failing. That's your specific, it's firm specific risk. And it can be controlled. It's within the control of the company. They can borrow, they can pay their workers. So that's firm specific risk. Credit risk can also be firm specific. Industry up and down swingings can also be firm specific, because there are some industry that may go down, some industry may go up at different times. For example, the fintech, right now, the fintech industry is at its peak. I can say over the past years, it's one of the industries that is at peak. You find that companies like hello guys, I realized as if there was a okay, 7:43. Okay, I tried staying online with hope of hearing something, but network is bad this side. Okay, guys, I see that some of us are having network challenges, but let me know if you're able to hear me right now, guys, so that I will not continue when you're not hearing me.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, that's good. So I was saying also, ups and downs in industries might not be wide economic. We know sometimes ups and downs might be economic, wider in the economy. Like now you can see that maybe we're experiencing a recession. We're going to explain all these things, like what is a recession, we will explain them later. But it might be specific to a certain industry. For example, I said that, the fintech, financial technology, is an industry that is growing. It's on its peak. It's going up. You find companies like Baco Financial Services. You find Time Bank. Time Bank is more of a fintech company. You find Mukuru, Hello Paisa. They are growing so fast. In their peak, it's their time, the up. And there's also high risk in those industries. Maybe if you invest, but now they're becoming so steady. And with time, we find them, it's not, nothing will stay the same. They might also reach a point that they're going a bit down, they're being shaken, new technologies are coming. Maybe we find that maybe the cryptocurrency is coming heavily, it's disrupting the market. You see, that's what we're seeing. So you find that these companies on its up, but some industries are going down. Like we can talk about the old telecommunication systems, they're going down, their lowest moment. That's industry specific. You find companies like ShopRite, they're also venturing into this fintech area. You know, they've got their cheapest savings, their cheapest account, their money market account. They're also doing money transfers. See, so I find it's an industry that is growing, but industry may grow, may be up and down at different times, and that's unsystematic risk. It's controlled because we're saying it's ShopRite. ShopRite, you know, ShopRite owns a lot of companies. You know, I'm sure you know Yusef, you know, OK Furniture falls under ShopRite. You know, Medre, it's called Medre Pharmacy. Just got a lot of brands. Lion, Hungry Lion, all those are ShopRite brands. So you can find like Home and Home, it's also ShopRite. So you find that if things are bad in the furniture industry, OK Furniture, because it's owned by ShopRite, if things are bad there, that's firm specific. Maybe people are not interested in furniture because things are bad now. They can move and focus much on the aspect of groceries because they own the Checkers. They own the Checkers Rush. You know the Checkers Rush. Now they're investing in the Checkers Rush. The not Taylor shop, because they realize that this area of furniture is not doing that great. So it's firm specific. It's not happening in all the sectors. So we're saying that there's a difference between systematic risk and unsystematic risk. Systematic risk is uncontrollable risk, undiversifiable risk. But unsystematic risk is a firm specific, idiosyncratic, investment specific risk. So we're also talking of examples like employee strikes. Employee strikes does not happen to all companies at once. It can be firm specific or industry specific. Maybe the transport sector they said no, the salary that we're given is not quite okay. Then there's a strike in the transport sector. Or maybe a specific company in the transport sector is controllable within that company. It's industry specific or firm specific. And operational risk is also unsystematic risk. And we said system failure is part of operational risk, and system failure is unsystematic risk. Is controllable. System failure is controllable by the firm, because the fact that you're having a system failure as a bank does not mean all banks have got system failure. It may be, I still remember a bank that I had. The bank was growing so fast, new clients and the like, but they were not upgrading their system. And the system had the hiccups, it got some high traffic because they are just having many clients and they're going digital, but they are not upgrading the system. So definitely the system will crunch. So we're saying that, but it's within the control of the company. They can upgrade their software and their hardware. Okay, guys. There's a strange sound that I'm getting on this side, which I'm thinking maybe it's network, but I'm sure I'm still connected to you. I do believe that on these first classes we're gonna not load you a lot, but when the assignment comes, we're gonna try to make sure that we've covered quite a lot so that you get 100%. Yeah, you need to get 100%. Okay, so that's what I've been saying. I'm sure I've answered some questions relating to what is the difference. Not sure if my network is okay. I can hear sound, maybe it's not coming from me. I've covered the difference between systematic risk and unsystematic risk. The examples, I'm sure I've listed them, and now you understand the difference between systematic and unsystematic risk. Why? This is a typical examination question. If you open your examination, we have the memos. You also understand that it's a question that has been asked, and something that you prepare for your assignment 1, it will be there. Okay. We'll give you the past assignments, like for assignment 1 also, so that you can also go through. And I'm going to issue the document that we'll be doing together, the slides. Today we are dealing on a Word document. That's the first class. I'm going to give you the document. It also, most of the times we'll be dealing with slides. They will make it easier and also interesting to go through. Also, there are also pre-recorded classes, especially for 05 and those who do financial management. I can also give you, if you want to go ahead, I can also give you. So, I was checking what's happening. Okay, someone wants to get into the class. So, we have got, yeah, you can check your cameras, guys. If it is on, you can set it off. So, let's just also look at systematic risk and unsystematic risk on this diagram as we conclude. Sorry, today I just made the class for 1 hour 30, but basically we'll be doing 2 hours for our classes, unless we find it necessary to do 1 hour 30, because I also realize some guys have got a lot to do, and we're going to do maybe classes throughout the week. So it's something that we need to talk so that we really understand. For 05, I can say 05 is also, I heard some people, they say it's a bit challenging, but we know we will pass with the distinctions. We will pass, but we will need to push together. We need to push together. I'm not going to say it's a walkover, but together we'll definitely pass. We have good coursework marks and we have good examination marks. Some got 87% distinctions, a lot of guys. You can check also our Facebook page. But we need to push together. We need to be committed. I can say 05 also, it's a class that we need also to have more time. So definitely we need to, depending on what we discuss, we need to have classes every week for 05. But we push together and we definitely win. So I've been talking about systematic and unsystematic risk, and we say that systematic risk and unsystematic risk adds up to give us total risk. So total risk is defined in terms of systematic risk and unsystematic risk. So you can find that, yes, you need to go further when a question comes. But do you know that someone who has done this, yes, they have not gone further, but they've defined the difference between the two. Unsystematic risk is risky, is a firm industry specific risk or diversifiable risk. Yes, that's correct. Systematic risk is market risk, non-diversifiable risk. That's correct. So the two will add up to come up with the total risk to a firm. To total risk to a firm. So basically, that's what we have, guys. Sorry, today it became a short class, but when we meet the next time, I'm sure we're going to just work and try to finish this document so that we really understand everything. If I am to scroll down, we will need to explain what is interest rate risk. Yes, we are not going to dig deeper, but what we need to do is to make someone have a general understanding of what do we mean when we say interest rate risk. The example for multi-choice that we gave, we're going to also look at another example on exchange rate risk.